Hey everybody, it's Scott Steehn with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with a little NFL season wrap-up with my old buddy Scott Reichel. He's over there at Winners and Whiners. He also is kind of commands the Stat Salt YouTube page. He does a daily video, and I highly recommend if you're not checking him out to get your butt over there and get his play of the day. He breaks down at least one play every day, and usually goes into others and takes questions live from the audience. So, without further ado, it's the one, the only. It is Scott Reichel. Scott, how are you today?
Doing pretty well. It's nice to get to talk some football, even though the season ended. But, there's some room to review everything that happened and try to unpack everything. Of course, there were no questionable decisions at all to talk with, so this should be a pretty short video, right?
Yeah, everything went fine. It was all good. First of all, how did the Super Bowl treat you? As we record this, it is Monday afternoon following the Super Bowl. Obviously, me being a Chiefs fan, I'm pretty excited, but I know you're back there on the East Coast, so I know you were concerned with how you did at the old with the pocketbook on that one. So how did it treat you, Scott?
Went pretty well. I had a play the day yesterday on Mahomes to throw an interception at plus 110, and I got that number on DraftKings, I believe. That ended up cashing. He ended up throwing 2 picks. That one was available like plus 700 on DraftKings. Of course, the limit on that was low. I put a sprinkle on that as well. I know something about Mahomes throwing the ball guaranteed 35 plus times against one of the best defenses in the entire NFL. Kind of made me believe there was some value on that.
Right.
Turns out it worked out. But other than that, I'm trying to remember what else I had. I had some player props. I had Damon Williams over in rushing yards. That won. He already won, but that touchdown at the end in the fourth pretty much was just the icing on the cake. I had Kelsey under in receiving yards. I had Kittle under in receiving yards. I ended up losing with Mostert, though, on the over in rushing. I can't believe he didn't start. I know that Coleman and Shannon go a long way back.
He never
but
starts.
How do you not start the guy who just ran for 200-something yards and 4 touchdowns in the last game?
He never
Didn't really
starts.
make any sense to me on that one. But other than that, I had a nice sweat on the under in the game, which I ended up getting early at about 54, 53 and a half or so.
Right.
That turned into a sweat. But I had one bad beat, though, which was the 49ers' first quarter plus a half. And they were pretty much leading for a decent portion, and then Kansas City scored with about 30 seconds left.
Yeah, you needed one more play out of them there at the end. You needed to keep that clock running and have one more play. That was that was unfortunate, but you hit your big one. We were on the other side of that Mostert pick. I sent it out as one of our premium prop plays, but I sent the guide out on Friday. Up until that time, I had the over 16.5, and then the injury report came back on Coleman that he was a full participant in practice and wasn't on the injury list, and we changed it to under 16.5 because I thought Coleman would snipe just enough carries from Mostert to make that a good play. So
well, that was the weirdest thing, though, is that he sniped him because he started, but Mostert only had 12. How do you only run the ball 22 times and you're averaging 6.4 yards per carry?
I went on some of the San Francisco fan boards right after the game was over, and there was one main school of thought with the San Francisco fans, and it was the fact that Shanahan stopped running the ball, and they blamed that more than anything else. As a Chiefs fan, when they came down and right after the turnover, they ran first down for 5 yards, they had 2nd and 5, and decided to throw the ball twice. We love to see that because Kansas City gave no indication, for the most part, that they could stop the run.
I think throughout the game, everyone kind of noticed, especially on that early interception by Garoppolo, where Twitter was going nuts and how Garoppolo looked like he had his eyes closed when he threw the pass.
He absolutely did, yes. Yeah, that was bizarre.
Yeah. So as soon as that happened, I feel like every piece of confidence that was left pretty much went out the window. But, he played well in the third quarter, and it just seemed like every single time the 49ers got down the field and ran the ball, then they got a lead, and kind of like what happened, I don't want to say it's as bad as the 28-3 collapse, but kind of same result. They just stopped running the ball. And the one drive that I remember specifically was the Kansas City. You had the drop by Hill, which turned into a 3rd and 15 long completion. That's fine, whatever. Chiefs score a touchdown. It's 20-17, and the one thing you can't afford to do is go 3 and out.
Right.
If you milk like 3 minutes off the clock there, then you're in decent shape.
You're really within two first downs of winning the game.
Pretty much. I mean, basically, you're looking at it like, well, either you win the game or worst case is you go to overtime because you force them into a long field goal. But either or, Mostert gets 5 yards on the first carry, and you think, all right, rinse and repeat, you're going to run the ball again.
Yeah, at that point, I got to tell you, I thought our under Mostert carries was in trouble. I thought they were going to shove it down their throat.
The one thing I don't understand is how do you only attempt 8 passes in an NFC Championship game and you run the ball down their throats and then you forget to run the ball in the fourth quarter of the biggest game of the year? It made no sense to me.
I don't understand it either. I totally agree.
In terms of who to blame for the game, did Garoppolo miss some shots? Yes, he missed Kittle on who was wide open on the third down. He missed Sanders on the deep post play over the middle. But I'd say 75% of the blame on Shanahan, probably 80.
Yeah, I think.
The play calling was brutal.
Yeah, it was and I'm gonna go back to one thing and talk about rewatching some of the plays. The interception that Mahomes threw there at the 5, it was a no look pass.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize it. My buddy that I was watching the game with pointed it out. We went back and looked at it, and it was absolutely him attempting a no-look pass. And I got to tell you, he missed Kelsey earlier in the season in the end zone doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. He threw a pick in the end zone on maybe the second or third game. You're not going to bitch too much about Pat Mahomes, but that is fairly annoying. Like,
well, the one thing I found weird about that one play was people were like blaming Tyreek Hill for that.
No,
he threw the ball 5 feet behind him. What do you want the guy to do?
Absolutely not. No, he reached back and got a hand on it. It was really no shot at catching.
But that was another point, though, in that game, is that 49ers, it's tie game at the half. First of all, I don't even know how to break down the last 2 minutes of the first half. That was some of the worst coaching and clock management I've ever seen by both coaches in the same game. I don't know what that was.
You have to think when your general manager is in the luxury suite.
And he's signaling for the timeout.
You got to think you're going to have a discussion on Monday morning about your job. Now, I'm sure they're not going to fire Shanahan, but I guarantee you Lynch is going to probably peel some paint off the walls with some of the words for Shanahan.
The point that I noticed there is that they're trying to run the clock. They're trying to run the clock out, which shows how little they trust Garoppolo.
Right.
Then Reed calls timeout after second down.
Right.
And people were complaining about that, and I actually thought that was reasonable because you were trying to see, what was going to happen. Calling timeout on first down gives the 49ers some time to work with, but Mahomes can throw the ball 75 yards, so you can attempt a Hail Mary or so if something works out. Then you had the questionable passing interference on Kittle. And that pretty much killed the potential of that final drive. I didn't really think it was passing interference. I thought it was kind of a weak call. I understand the letter of the law, but I don't know. It just seemed like a big game to call that spot. I don't know. It just didn't seem like – I just don't like the refs deciding games, and I felt like that was one of the bigger plays in the first half, and they completely just wrecked it. But anyway, the point I was trying to make was that the 49ers start the second half really well. They scored 10 points, and then Mahomes gets intercepted, and in the red zone. And at this point, you just think if the 49ers just run the ball and pick up 3 first downs,
right,
at least 5 or 7 minutes are coming off the clock. And at that point, the game's over. According to ESPN's win probability, the 49ers, right before the Hill 3rd and 15 play, had a 96.1% chance of winning.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's very, very close.
It wasn't as bad as the 99.9 from the 28-3 game, but, Shanahan's responsible for 2 of the biggest choke jobs in Super Bowl history, and he's only been a head coach for, I don't even know, 3 years?
Yeah,
one of them was the offensive coordinator, but that was his last offensive coordinator year. So he's probably had some of the worst 4-year runs probably ever in terms of Super Bowl success.
Hang on, the Buffalo Bills are on the phone.
I was going to say the Buffalo Bills, and you got the Vikings there.
The Vikings, yeah.
But, I think it actually takes skill to lose both of those Super Bowls. I don't know how it was even possible. That's something that you would attempt in a video game and you wouldn't be able to do.
Right.
That's just next level stuff. But, the game itself I thought was entertaining. Was it the best Super Bowl of all time? No. Was it the worst Super Bowl of all time? No. I kind of wish Williams did not score that breakaway touchdown at the end because it would have kept it one possession a little bit interesting. But the only issue that I feel like you had, especially if you back the 49ers. I personally lean to the 49ers just based on the fact that as I thought if Garoppolo was serviceable, the rest of the team was just better. I thought the 49ers checked all the boxes besides quarterback, and I was just going to lean on the more overall talent. But the logic was Garoppolo got the ball back down 3 after they completely choked, and they already gave up 14 points in the fourth.
Right.
Did you have any? I mean, as a Chiefs fan, were you really scared of Garoppolo going down the field and scoring a touchdown? I wasn't.
You know what? We've seen that defense bend, letting teams in that position go down the field on a regular basis.
So that's correct. But
we absolutely were sweating it.
Of course, as a fan, you were sweating because you were that close, you taste it. But I'm saying in general, there are so many more quarterbacks you'd be scared. There are so many other quarterbacks you'd be more scared of to lead the comeback than Jimmy Garoppolo. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my fear was based more on
passing interference or something.
Well, no, just the Kansas City defense in general.
That's fair.
Because I'd seen, like I said, watching every game that team played, we've seen them let teams in that position march down the field, and it usually we all thought it was going to come down to a third or fourth down play from the 12-yard line where it was basically going to come down to one play. That's how we all saw it playing out, was one play for the game, and it didn't get there. Garoppolo was unable to do that.
Yeah, I mean, was Garoppolo awful in the game? No. I mean, I thought he was okay for the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, he was absolutely abysmal. But, I mean, Mahomes wasn't great for the first 3 quarters either.
Oh, no.
I think you could argue that Garoppolo was maybe... I know Mahomes had the rushing touchdown. But you could argue that Garoppolo was potentially playing better over the first, 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, I mean, Mahomes showed up, and that's pretty much what happened.
I don't even think you've got a... I don't even know that you have an argument there that Garoppolo didn't have the better game up to that point. So that kind of brings me to one, and then we're going to move on. We're going to move on to next season. We're going to put this one in the rearview mirror. But
I don't think you'll ever put it in the rearview mirror.
Well, I personally won't know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I got the hat. I got the hat and everything, man. So I'm not going to put it in the rearview mirror anytime soon. But for our purposes, let me ask you this. How do you feel if you've got a Damian Williams 24-25 to 1 ticket on the MVP today? You feel like you got robbed?
Well, I had a couple of friends who I was watching the Super Bowl with, and they were talking about, Williams is going to win MVP, all this other stuff. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, Mahomes is going to win the award.
Right.
I mean, the way that I saw it was that regardless of how well the position players do, it's a quarterback award. I mean, it usually takes something substantial for a position player to get the Super Bowl MVP award. I mean, I'm thinking of
it's almost like a boxing match where you've got to beat the champ.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking Broncos, Panthers, and how Peyton Manning was so useless that they had to give it to Von Miller because there was no other option. I mean, I'm thinking of a bunch of stuff. You could have argued the Patriots-Falcons game, which I keep making reference to. I mean, James White had 3 touchdowns. He had the game-winning touchdown. They gave it to Brady anyway.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of examples here. You had the Malcolm Smith one in the blowout against the Broncos. I don't even think Smith deserved it that year. But in terms of the actual breakdown, Mahomes had 3 touchdowns. Were the 2 interceptions bad? Yes. But he did lead the team to 21 points in the fourth quarter. I know Williams had 2 of those touchdowns, including the game breaker.
He had the game winner and the icing on the cake.
Yeah, but he had the game winner, but so did Mahomes. So, I mean, that's kind of a wash.
I suppose so. I mean, but, I think anytime you put up 100 yards, I think if you've got 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, you've got to be considered.
I agree. But, I mean, when people think of the game-changing plays, the game-changing play was Mahomes' pass to Hill.
Yes, very true.
So, I mean, but in terms of how do I feel, if I had a 25 to 1 ticket, which was I believe that was the number you said. You said 25 to 1?
Yeah, most of it 24, 25 to 1, depending on where you got it.
I'd probably be ripping my house apart. But in terms, just based on the value, but in terms of am I surprised?
Yeah.
No, I think everybody knew going in if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, Mahomes is going to win MVP.
Well, that's why he was plus 110,
That's the point. I mean, basically, you would Chiefs money line for Mahomes MVP. I mean, it's basically, of course, Chiefs were favored by 1.5 or so, but basically, everyone knew if the Chiefs are going to win, Mahomes is going to win.
Yeah. That's... Yeah, like I say, it's almost like a boxing match where to beat you got to beat the champs convincingly because anything that's close to 50-50 that he's going to get the nod. So, all right, well, I just wanted to touch on that because I personally thought that Williams would get it. I didn't think Mahomes had the game. Now
I feel like it's a marketing tool at the same point. I mean, everyone knows Mahomes is in his second year starting is going to be the future of the league. You got to sprinkle in some accolades.
He's on the cover of Madden, for God's sakes, and it's basically his third year.
Forget the Madden cover. He won the Super Bowl on the cover of Madden. He broke the Madden curse. That's how good he is.
Broke the Madden curse, man.
Yeah, but I mean, realistically though, I feel like in terms of watching the game, I wouldn't have complained if Williams won the award. But I think in the back of everybody's mind, you knew when in doubt, pick the quarterback.
Yeah, and it is kind of a shame, and the Heisman has kind of turned into that as well.
Well, his numbers were also worse because he had negative 12 or whatever rushing yards on the last drive, which was one of the worst prop beats I've ever seen people take in their lives.
He had minus 15 yards in the last 3 plays. Yeah, I read that.
And it was brutal. I believe the number from Mahomes anywhere around like 35.5 to like 40-something.5.
Right.
And he actually just kept retreating every play, and then he got -7 on the last play.
Well,
and I can only imagine what kind of reaction you had from people in sportsbooks with the over ticket, and they were probably losing their mind.
And I told my buddy, I said, and I didn't think he was that close in rushing yards because we didn't have any action in that, so I really didn't track it. I said, if he was closer to that total in rushing yards in those 3 plays, there'd be some people going absolutely ape shit. And I didn't realize that he was, like I said, because we didn't have any action. That's one of the things I didn't even check. I didn't realize that he had that many yards. So then when I started reading about that later, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah.
I've actually had a worse prop beat, not in a Super Bowl, but in my career, I've had a worse prop beat with like passing yards in the past. It's a story that I might tell some other time. It was bad. And then you can still find the video of it. So it's really bad.
Outstanding.
But in terms of Super Bowl props, this might be one of the worst prop losses I've ever seen.
Yeah, I wanted to pat my own back for hitting I missed the national anthem, by the way. I always I had the over there.
Demi Lovato definitely slammed the under. She was speeding through that thing.
There was talk. I've been watching the shows today, and there's actually talk of like the fix being in there, but I don't even want to go down that road. But we did.
Well, I heard some reports that some of the people that listened to the rehearsals were talking about how the totals were going way under, and then everyone started slamming the under, and then Demi Lovato just decided to speed run the national anthem.
Like the purple Gatorade. Everybody, there was late heat on purple Gatorade.
It was in honor of Kobe, and then it turned out to be orange, which I guess is close to purple. So it is what it is. No,
3-1 on
I don't
orange,
know.
man.
If you're really slamming on the steam on the Gatorade prop, you should probably
go to a meeting.
You should probably go to some type of. I heard there's like a once a week meeting that people go to try to help themselves out with that.
I had over 2.5 costume changes for J-Lo.
Okay.
And I also had no A-Rod appearance during the halftime show.
And did both of those win?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sharp money. It's sharp money.
That's right.
It's always sharp money when you win.
I think that's why people come to us because we're able to give that kind of advice, the kind of insight that you don't find other places.
Of course. I posted on my Twitter, tails never fails. I don't know how people were going heads. They're out of their minds.
I asked my wife before the game. I said heads or tails, and my wife, of course, being a woman, she can't decide. So
okay, that happens.
And obviously, figuring out where to go for dinner is a real treat as well. But I give her 2 choices: heads or tails. I don't know. My daughter said,
I feel like she would have given you an answer if you told her that it was a 50-50 shot.
So I asked my daughter. She said heads, but she said it with conviction and authority. So I immediately put $10 down on heads just to get the.
You should ask her for the money back.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so. That puts a nice little red and yellow bow on the 2019 season. Scott, tell me who was your biggest surprising team that did well that you didn't see coming in the NFL in 2019?
Well, in terms of the actual surprise, people were going to say the 49ers. I was actually kind of bullish on the 49ers. I thought they would make the playoffs. I didn't think they'd be this good, but I thought they would be good. I think the biggest surprise to me was Baltimore. I don't think anybody thought that Baltimore would dominate the AFC like they did in the regular season. I know that the playoff run was non-existent because they literally lost in their first playoff game, but I don't think anyone went into the season and thought, especially with all the hype surrounding the Browns in the offseason, I don't think anyone thought Baltimore was going to just win the last 12 games of the regular season. I don't think that was an option in anybody's mind.
Right.
I don't think people thought Lamar Jackson was going to win MVP. I know that the first week he had 5 touchdowns or 6 against Miami. I think it was 5. I don't even remember. But overall, my biggest surprise was probably Baltimore because I don't think anybody thought they were going to be the 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, okay, so we, a little glimpse behind the scenes here. We now have a technical problem. You have you have frozen on the screen.
Okay, wait, hang on a second. Let me see if I can fix that. Am I back?
You are. You're back.
Okay, cool.
Very well done. It wasn't a particularly unflattering freeze.
That's fine.
That's what I've learned posting the YouTube videos is you get your 3 choices of your screenshots, and I've figured out that I make a lot of weird facial expressions.
Oh, no, you get the 3 choices screenshots, so I found a way around it. What I do is I use Photo Booth as an app, and I take a photo before the video, and then I just drag that along after.
Oh, my God. Oh, millennials. Am I right, kids?
I know. Am I right? It's crazy stuff.
All right. So you like Baltimore. You'd be hard-pressed saying that Baltimore wasn't the biggest surprise. Being the number 1 seed and everything like that.
Preseason-wise, they were. Mid-season, I think the biggest surprise was Tennessee. At no point did I think that benching Mariota and starting Tannehill would lead to a run to the AFC Championship game.
Right.
In season, that was the biggest surprise.
Yeah.
Preseason was definitely Baltimore.
And would you say, and we didn't really, I didn't talk about planning this, but would you say Mariota was probably the most surprising player for you, or was Lamar Jackson doing what he did?
It was.
Or someone else.
I'm assuming you mean Tannehill.
What's that, Tannehill?
Yeah, I mean, but no, you just said Mariota. I'm assuming you meant Tannehill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely.
Overall, no, it's definitely for me. It was Lamar. I mean, everyone saw his limitations that he had against the Chargers in the playoffs, and everyone thought, he'd be good. It would be a niche offense. Are the Ravens making the right decision, going all in on this guy? What's the story? And they pretty much destroyed the league for the entire regular season. Now, of course, the same flaws, showed up again against Tennessee. And Tennessee, I mean, Lamar Jackson's stats were good, but it was mostly garbage time.
Right.
But overall, I mean, he was the unanimous MVP. I mean, he's clearly the story that you have to talk about.
I agree. Now, I think for me, I'm going to go with a pair of NFC teams as probably my picks for most disappointing, and they were middle of the pack teams where they ended up. One of them is Dallas going 8-8.
I was going to say that.
And the other one is the Bears going 8-8 after their run last year with the defense. I think everybody, I don't think anybody ever expected Mitchell Trubisky to be the next Pat Mahomes, even though he was drafted ahead of him. I'm never going to let Bears fans forget that.
Never forget that the Bears traded up in order to get Trubisky.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, the one thing about the Bears, though, is that I remember that when we tried to do a video before the season about some win totals and stuff like that,
right?
You both mentioned that we both did not like the Bears.
Yeah, they were. What were they? 10.5? Did they have them at the? You remember?
It was 10.5 or I think it was flat 10. I think it might have been flat 10.
Yeah, that could be. And we ended up being right. But that division that is a tough division. It
was a tough division, but we both looked at it and we're just like, they're losing some coaching staff members because Fangio went to Denver.
Right.
And we're looking over, do we think Trubisky's gonna make a step? And we just looked at each other and just said no.
Yeah, and they still have problems at running back. The kid from Iowa State.
I actually like
Montgomery.
But I don't really know. Honestly, Nagy's play calling was terrible this past season. I don't really know what happened there. The whole offense just imploded. I mean, then again, it's kind of tough to actually call an offense when you don't have any faith in your quarterback. But I don't know. The Bears were a complete disaster.
Yeah.
But I still find it hilarious that Trubisky was the most bet MVP future from this past year.
Yeah, probably just edged out Baker Mayfield.
Something like that.
I think for me,
Cleveland's probably my answer, honestly.
Baltimore, I think is the obvious pick there. But I'll tell you another team that kind of surprised me. A team that we expected to be good, but probably not where they ended up was the Green Bay Packers at 13-3.
You count a bye as being disappointing, though?
What's that? Well,
they got a bye.
No. As one of the most surprising teams. I didn't expect.
Oh, surprising!
I didn't expect them with LaFleur coming in, and questions about the defense. They brought in the Smith brothers. They didn't really know how they were going to go. I think the Packers kind of overperformed expectations.
Okay, well, first of all, I thought you meant disappointing, so that's why I got confused with the Packers there. No, I agree with that. I mean, Green Bay, if you watch them play, looked like one of the worst 13-3 teams I've ever seen.
No question.
But in terms of the actual, run they went on, Yes, they tried to choke against Seattle in the second half, but they didn't. So, I mean, they were one game away from the Super Bowl, and if you watch them play, I mean, Rodgers didn't look as sharp as he normally was. Aaron Jones was solid. The defense looked good. I'm inclined to agree with you. I think one team we forgot to mention for disappointing teams has to be the Saints. I mean, that was brutal.
Well, yeah. I mean, it certainly was to give away the game to San Francisco and then not get the bye, and then to not show up against Minnesota. Yeah, absolutely.
At home, though. I mean, that was just...
Both those games were at home.
How do you lose to Kirk Cousins in a playoff game?
I don't know. I don't. The next thing you know, he'll be beating them on a Monday night. So.
I mean, that was bad. I mean, Cleveland was also an honorable mention for most disappointing, just based on the preseason hype. Now, a lot of that hype was exaggerated.
Yeah, it really was.
But that's worth mentioning, though. I mean, they were terrible.
I like Baker. It's a shame to see him kind of take a step back and regress.
Do you blame him or Freddie Kitchens?
What's that? Yeah, well, I guess we're going to find out.
The minute that Freddie Kitchens, I still remember this. It was the defining play for me regarding the Browns. I remember the Sunday night game with the Rams and Browns, and I gave out the Rams -2.5. And I saw the Browns run a draw on 4th and 9.
Oh, yeah.
At that moment, I knew that Freddie Kitchens should have been fired on the way to the plane to go back home. That was one of the worst play calls I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I remember the Twitter went nuts about that call.
Oh, I loved it because I had the Rams. But I mean, I
did too. If you've got OBJ and what's the other receiver?
Landry.
I love by the way.
Landry's very good.
I like him a lot. Great hands, hard worker. If you've got those two guys and you're not more successful than you were throwing the ball, there's definitely a problem somewhere. It's either going to be Baker or it's going to be the play caller.
Do you think it's going to be a bigger improvement that they ended up deciding to sign the Vikings offensive coordinator who got 7 first downs in the playoff game?
I don't understand. I don't.
That's why they're Cleveland. You don't have to understand.
I don't understand the whole head coaching thing. That whole thing made no sense to me, especially when you looked at the parameters. Some of the things that came out about the Cleveland job, where you have to submit your game plan to Friday night to management, to ownership, so they can review it, and I don't even know who would go for that. So
I don't know.
All right,
there's been a lot of head coaching moves that have left me scratching my head a bit, but I mean there have been some good ones, but overall,
Eric Bieniemy and Robert Saleh are on the phone.
He should. I mean, I'm surprised one of them, if not both, were hired. That's ridiculous.
Insane. It's insane, man.
But then again, Joe Judge. I mean, did you see how the Patriots receivers played this past year? I mean, come on. It's a no-brainer. I mean, come on. I do like the Matt Rule hire, though. I think the Matt Rule hire was good. They're paying him too much money. It's still. But I think he's talented. And the Cowboys getting McCarthy was a safe play. But, I mean, McCarthy's going to get hired by one team or another.
Right. Yeah, no question about it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at next season. We got the futures odds, of course. It's been 12 hours since the Super Bowl's over, so of course we got the futures odds. And I know they were up even before that. So
of course this is a 25-unit max play.
It's the lock of the century, everybody. It's the 3rd of February. Lock in your Super Bowl 55 play right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the Chiefs are 5-1 to repeat. What do you think? You like that?
I'm
not going to go
in terms of that value. No, okay. I mean you got to pay attention to who's going to potentially leave in free agency and who's going to be making moves. Of course, naturally, it's too early to realistically bet any of these futures. But in terms of value, first of all, when was the last time we had a repeating champion not named New England?
Would it have been a Pittsburgh team? Is that right?
The point is that we don't know.
I thought the point is you did some research and you were ready with a question.
Oh, no, I was simply asking because I knew that if we actually thought about it, we wouldn't come up with an answer unless we Google searched it. Yeah, because it just doesn't happen.
No, you're right.
I mean, realistically, you can bet the Chiefs, and is there a defense still? Of course, you're looking better now because of the fact that every coordinator is going to be back, and that was definitely a concerning factor. But overall, Mahomes is going to be great. I personally would probably bet on Mahomes to win the MVP, but in terms of a future bet. But overall, in terms of the playoffs, it's so tough to pick the same team to win again at such a short price when it's single elimination.
Right.
That's just brutal.
So, who do you like? Have you looked at the prices? Yeah,
I'm actually. I'm looking offshore right now at some of the prices. Okay. In terms of the actual teams, I see value with one team, And do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, but I see value with the number. See, the only way that I'm looking at the futures is which team has the best chance to get into the dance.
Right.
Because if a team makes it into the playoffs, that's kind of half the battle. The rest are kind of just watching and hoping for the best. As we saw in the playoffs with Tennessee making a deep run and you had some other team. I mean, based on how it works, every now and then you just have to get in and then hope everything goes out in your favor.
Agreed.
So, in terms of value, I mean, offshore, I see the Saints at 16-1. Do I think the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl? Probably not, because they're the champions of choking in the playoffs. But that division's a joke.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
they've got a great path.
That division's a joke, and if the Saints didn't lose to the Falcons earlier in the year, they would have got the bye.
Right.
So if you're looking at the bye and you have to win one playoff game in order to get to the NFC title game, I think the NFC is, for the most part, pretty wide open. So, I mean, if the Saints are – I don't want to say they're locks to win the division, but Atlanta's bringing back Dan Quinn. Good luck with that. I think the Saints probably have the best chance to go 12-4 again, 13-3 again, something like that.
Right.
Saints at 16 I think Saints at 16-1 is a pretty good price.
The other thing I'm looking at here is the Buffalo Bills at 40-1.
Do you trust Josh Allen enough?
I do. I do, especially in the AFC East. I don't think that's going to be a great. I don't think that's going to be a great conference. The Jets have a great run defense. I don't trust Darnold.
I agree to get in. I'm talking. Plus, you also have the questions about Brady returning to New England or not. But
I don't care.
That's fair. But that's also something that people are going to be talking about. So I'm saying no team is fully set at any position besides Buffalo. Buffalo's probably the most stable team right now in terms of roster makeup.
Yeah, I like Devin Singletary. I think he's going to just get better. I like that defense a lot. And
does McDermott's play calling in that playoff game concern you?
Yeah. As does Josh Allen. A little bit of panic in the eyes there late in the game.
Which part? The lateral backwards, or which play are you talking about? Or the sack on 4th and 15 where he ran back 30 yards?
Yeah, it's really tough to. I probably the sacks. The lateral. You're trying to make a play, but
that just made me laugh.
The sacks thing. That's just a quarterbacking 101 about not throwing the ball away. So
now, one thing I see about offshore that I just find very interesting. I'm not saying that anyone should bet this. I see that the Colts, the Titans, and the Texans are all at 35-1.
Okay, see, and I'm using it. I've got a different site, so I've got the Titans at 25-1. So,
well, I see offshore. I see 35-1, which I find fascinating because 3 teams in the same division have the same exact Super Bowl price, which just shows how much of a toss-up that division is.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacksonville's in a separate category because I don't really know what they're doing in Jacksonville.
I don't even know. Know.
In terms of other potential values, I see Seattle at 25-1 offshore.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you get Wilson into the dance, you gotta assume he's got some magic left in him.
A couple teams you wouldn't touch.
That's the thing about the NFL though, is that you look at most of the teams and you can immediately eliminate basically half the teams in the league.
Right.
But in terms of I'm going to ignore the bottom feeders.
I'm not going to. No, I'm talking about overvalued teams that you just don't think have a shot that are more expensive than they should be.
The Vikings at 30-1. I have no faith in Cousins. The Rams at 30-1. I don't have faith in Goff, and I think their roster is an absolute disaster. If you look at the cap they currently have with Gurley, who basically has one knee, you have Goff, who's making a ton of money, and you have Ramsey, who's about to be in line for a huge deal. They have pretty much no cap flexibility, and their offensive line is terrible, and their division is brutal.
Yeah, that's a brutal.
The Rams at 30-1, I'm not a fan of those. Cleveland at 30-1, also, I'm not a fan of. How about they make the playoffs first, and then you can worry about them potentially winning a Super Bowl?
I don't like the Patriots at 9-1.
That's way too high for me.
I think that division is, while it's still weak, I think they have real competition in the Bills now.
Well, forget about the competition. What weapons do they have on offense? Unless Gronk comes back,
right? No, that's absolutely legit. And I talked about that on my videos.
Their defense is good, but that's pretty much it.
They're out of weapons on offense.
I'm not a Sony Michel guy, so that's my thoughts on that. In terms of other futures here, I think Pittsburgh being at 17.5 is a joke. I think, Big Ben's coming back from Tommy John. I'm supposed to believe he's the same guy that he was when he was 25.
Right.
I think that's an absolute joke. Plus, they're against Baltimore in the division, so you're pretty much looking at all road games in the playoffs.
Another team with a great defense, however, but yeah.
Oh, their defense is great with Fitzpatrick and everything, but, are you really going to bet on, according to an offshore book I'm looking at, the Steelers have the sixth worst odds to, or the sixth, lowest odds to win the Super Bowl. I don't get how you expect a wild card team to make that type of run. I think those odds are insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a bunch of teams here. The Raiders are 25-1. That's a joke.
Yeah, I've got the Raiders the same as the Bills at 40-1.
That's fair. I still think 40-1 is too high. They're guaranteed to come in second place, assuming Mahomes doesn't get injured.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the Chargers at 23-1 are also a joke because they re-signed Anthony Lynn. I don't get what he did. I don't know what he did or who he's blackmailing to get an extension.
Right.
But there's no way they don't even know who their quarterback is.
Yeah, that's, to me, any team with a question mark at quarterback, you almost have to immediately discount them.
Whoever it is, though, is an upgrade over Rivers because he was terrible this past season. But Anthony Lynn in a close game, do you trust him? I don't. I don't know how he got an extension.
No.
I have no idea.
As someone who's watched a lot of games with the Chargers and Chiefs over the years, I definitely don't trust Anthony Lynn.
The Chargers are painful. Have you ever tried to watch it? Even on NFL Red Zone or anything where you're going through, every Chargers game is close and they're going to blow it.
Right.
It's just the way it is. I don't really know. Now, if you want to talk about some long-term sleepers that you can potentially look at, you mentioned Buffalo. I'm still not a big Josh Allen guy because I don't know. I just feel like he's just not accurate enough for me in the pocket. I think Tennessee at 35-1 is not a bad deal, at least on this offshore book that I see.
Okay.
You mentioned the odds on yours that you said I believe it was 23-1.
Tennessee I have at 25-1.
Yeah, okay, so one offshore book here has 35-1.
Right.
They were one game away from the Super Bowl. Now, do I think that they're going to make it? No, but I actually do think Patricia is very solid. I think he's a pretty good coach.
You talk about Tennessee? You're talking about Vrabel. Patricia.
Vrabel. Sorry, I said Patricia. No, I think Patricia's terrible. I think Vrabel's real. I think Vrabel's very solid. Yeah, thank you for that. I got the New England former players and I got those mixed up. But
right.
Yeah.
Take the guy that he played for, not the guy the one that he coached.
I think Patricia's terrible, and I think it's laughable that Detroit brought him back. But no, Vrabel I think he actually showed a lot during the playoffs to me. The one thing I appreciate about Tennessee is that they know what their identity is.
Yeah.
Now the one concern is that they might run Derrick Henry into the ground.
307 attempts this year, man.
Imagine the cold though. You're playing in New England, you're playing in Pittsburgh, in these whatever, and you have Derrick Henry in the snow.
You're right.
You have a shot to win any game.
Now I remember, and I wasn't unable to find. I was looking for this stat and I couldn't find it, but I remember when the Chiefs were riding Larry Johnson as a workhorse, and he had over 300 carries. I
was thinking of Priest Holmes also. You've had a lot of bell cow backs in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. No question about it. But Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
But there was a stat about when a player has over 300 carries, what happens to his career, and basically it just falls off the cliff.
Yeah, I think of Eddie George as a perfect example from Tennessee.
Yeah, and you think they would remember that there. But,
well, the point is that they can save him during the regular season. That division isn't that great. Realistically, 9 wins could potentially be enough to make the playoffs anyway. But if you get into the dance and you have to play a road game and you have a bowling ball at running back, 35-1 is not that bad. Plus, Tannehill didn't do much in the playoffs. He wasn't terrible.
No, he wasn't awful. No.
He wasn't great. He was awful against New England, but that was part of the game plan and the weather. But overall, I think Tennessee at 35-1 looks like a bit of a steal. If the Colts had Andrew Luck, I'd look at them, but I don't trust Brissett.
No.
I feel like Atlanta's always an attractive option, and then you remember just all of the chaos that they have every year. But 40-1 for Atlanta,
That defense is awful, just awful.
I know. Well, they also have bad luck with injuries. I know that Neal got injured as their safety, and they miss. I know Vic Beasley's officially gone though.
Yeah,
they're moving on from him.
Speaking of a team that had bad luck with injuries, I don't hate the Bucks. I've got the Bucks at 66-1.
You know who their quarterback is?
Yeah, I know. The defensive player of the year. I thought that was a funny tweet. Did you?
I mean,
I'm assuming you
yeah,
saw
I mean,
that.
you're going to lose out on a bunch of interceptions, though. So, I mean, that definitely helps. I mean, I don't know who their quarterback is, but that's definitely a
You don't think they're
decent.
going to bring him back? You don't think they're going to bring back Crab Legs?
After Arians roasted him in the interview from a couple weeks ago, hell no.
No.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, by the
No,
way.
I don't think I saw that.
So Winston came out and he basically said, "I deserve $30 million."
Right.
So after everybody finished having a heart attack from laughing for about an hour, Arians decided to respond, and he basically said, if we can win some games with that quarterback, I think we'll be fine in the future." Like something like that.
Wow.
He basically threw him under the bus and then hit drive.
Snap.
Like it was bad. So no, I think he's gone.
I know 30-30 is a good thing in baseball, not so much in football.
I'll tell you what, that's definitely a historic stat line, and that is something that I'll tell my kids about 20 years from now.
I'm going to show my kids this was Jameis Winston.
Correct, something like that. But no, in terms of like deals, I mean, the Bears at 40-1 if they would ship Trubisky, but there's no way they're getting rid of Trubisky.
No.
I mean, if they did though, that's a very attractive number.
Well, see, the thing about the Bucs, I like that run defense.
It's true. I mean, they also
and they were banged up in the secondary in the second half of the year.
I mean, overall they're okay. Just they kept turning the ball over like crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's the thing about the NFL, though, is that we're naming a bunch of teams where we're basically grasping at straws.
Yeah, and it's
like, do any of these teams like really have a serious shot? No. I mean, we're picking teams based on can they get into the playoffs.
Right. You're right.
I mean, it's just there's so many teams in the. There's one thing you notice about the NFL, and especially like every league, but the NFL in particular. There are so many teams whose fan bases go into the year and they know their team has no chance. They just don't want to admit it. Like you can't relate because you root for Kansas City, but like as a Jets fan,
right?
You think they go into the season with optimism?
You know, I love the Jets defense, man. They're really putting a defense, another great run defense.
No, but like I'm just saying, like for example, you think Bengals fans go into the season and go, I really hope we can, win 11 games. Like no, they're like, can we win 2?
They're going to go into this season thinking 11 wins with.
They're going to think Burrow's going to take them to the promised land.
Absolutely,
the offensive line and AJ Green's going to leave. But it's what it is.
All right, man. Well,
actually, no. One quick question before we finish here. I saw offshore there were some props about Brady's next team. You have any thoughts on that?
Oh man, I guess the money right now is on the Oakland Raiders. I think he stays home. I think he stays home. I think that's my hunch.
For the record, offshore has him staying on the Patriots at minus. I see minus 900 here on offshore. But there's one book offshore that gives you the lines of every team not named the Patriots.
Okay.
You get a refund if he goes back to the Patriots. And I believe that the Raiders were at plus 300 there.
Okay.
I mean, I would personally sprinkle there because I think if he is going to go to one team, it would be the Raiders. I think the move makes any sense for the Raiders to do? No. But
I think Gruden's going to do
Carr. Gruden things.
I think Gruden. I don't think Gruden likes Carr at all.
Oh no, he doesn't. I'm saying Gruden's going to do Gruden things.
Oh,
I'm apparently they're interested.
Yeah, if you're getting rid of Khalil Mack in your first year, anything is on the table as far as what you're looking to do.
Well, I mean, a huge issue you run into just based on the NFL is how so many average quarterbacks got massive salaries.
Yeah.
I mean, I still blame Joe Flacco for that. I mean, Flacco won a Super Bowl, but he was the first one who was like, I want to be the highest paid guy.
Right.
And then everyone else was like, oh, Flacco got this much money. What are you kidding me? Yeah. I deserve this much money. Now you got people like Goff and Garoppolo, and they're all making like $30 million a year. And you look over and you're like, that's an awful contract. Like Derek Carr, for example.
Yeah, who you like being right now is Pat Mahomes.
Correct. I mean, and the Chiefs, they still have his rookie contract, and they won a Super Bowl out of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's really ideal.
In the future, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. I mean, Mahomes should pretty much ask for a key to the city.
Oh,
and they would probably give it to him.
Yeah, I guess the big thing right now in KC about that contract is whether they're going to do it before next year or whether they're going to wait till the CBA comes up. But that's a topic for another show.
Something like that. But I'm inclined to agree. I think he's going to stay in New England. But if I had to look elsewhere, and if you could find a prop offshore that has the Patriots not included, so you get a refund if he goes back to New England,
right.
I would have to take the Raiders.
Yeah, I think they want to make a big splash there in Vegas, and I think that's probably the smart play. I guess there was a little early money on the Chargers, and that's kind of faded away. I think he definitely wants to go to the West Coast. I really do. I think that's.
It's definitely better weather than New England. I'll tell you that much.
Oh my God, absolutely. So, all right, bud. Well, let's do this fairly regularly. I like the format. Hopefully, people will dig it, and maybe we can even get fancy sometime and do it live, take some questions and whatnot and things like that.
Works for me. I mean, I don't know. We should definitely do it again right around like conference tournament or like March Madness. Yes. That would definitely be a good time.
Yes, I would definitely like to do a look ahead for conference tournaments, and hopefully people have had a little fun, learned a little something. I know that we had an up and down NFL season. How was your NFL season? Did you end up doing okay?
For the NFL, no. It did not go that well, but I kind of jumped ship, so it really didn't affect me later on.
Well, there you go.
I was very good in the player prop market.
Good.
It was mostly just so many backdoor covers, and NFL is just so painful sometimes.
Yeah, I felt like I spent the whole season getting on the show and going, well, you know what? We were ahead at this point, but here's what happened.
It's like, we were in the fourth quarter, we're up 14, and then, we got a 70-yard passing interference penalty against us. And I'm just like, it's every week.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's what the NFL is. I mean, college football is really good. NBA has been really good for me during the course of the season. But for NFL, it was fine. I wouldn't say it was awful by any means. I mean, at some point you realize when you keep giving out picks, like, I feel like I could be more profitable if I gave out something else. You know what I mean? Like I had that going on. So I'm like, I'll give out NBA from now on. So I just did.
Well, see, and I've gone the opposite. Where NBA, I've struggled. Like last year, we killed it. We were over 60% legit last year in NBA, and best season I've ever had in NBA. This year we've struggled, but college basketball has been pretty good to us. So
yeah, I mean, I got to count. College basketball was actually really good for me last year.
Right.
But I mean, that's pretty much where I started on this channel. But overall, no, college basketball hasn't been that great for me this year, just based on the fact that every team that I think is good ends up not being good, and I don't know who's good anymore. The whole season's been chaos.
So if people have learned nothing else from our video today, if you want to get your NBA picks, head over there to StatSalt, check out Scott Reichel's daily pick. And if you want to get your college picks, head over to Winners and Winers and check out our YouTube channel.
I mean, college hasn't been awful, but in terms of NBA, I've started giving out player props recently. But no, it might sound really stupid, but I just realized just fade bad teams in the NBA.
What?
There's so many awful teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, in every league you have some teams that are like the Bengals and all whatever, and you know they're going to be bad. If you look at the conference breakdowns, the teams at the top of the conference are like taking up all the wins. There are so many teams in the NBA that are like 18 games under. It's crazy. There are so many awful teams.
The spoonbills of the NBA is what they are.
Correct. There are so many of them.
You're right.
You know they're going to be bad.
Yeah, we're playing against the. We're taking one of those. We got the Knicks tonight against the team that probably should be even a little worse than the Pistons.
Against the Cavs.
Yeah, the Cavs rather. Sorry, yeah.
I gave out the Heat today, but I mean that was just based on the fact that
I like the Heat. That was our
Miami's unbeatable at home.
Yeah, that was our other play. I thought the only thing I worried about, I thought that number was a little short.
The number is very short.
That -3 scares me. So
the number's very short, but in reality, Philly's like 7-19 on the road, and Miami's 21-3 at home. So even if I lose, I have to bet it.
Yeah, you have to tell people like this is the play. This is the statistically the good play to make, and sometimes
like win or lose, just based on how these teams have played lately, this is a no-brainer play.
Yeah, I agree.
But I mean, it is what it is.
I agree. All right, I am Scott Steehn. Everybody, he is Scott Reichel. He does the daily videos over there at StatSalt. Scott, what time do those usually come on? What time do you usually try to get those up?
I try to get them up in the early afternoon, so normally somewhere around 1, 2, 3, give or take.
All right, and of course I am Scott Steehn. I do the daily Deep 3 over there at the Winners and Winers channel there on YouTube. Make sure you check both of us out. We appreciate you joining us, and we will definitely be doing this again. Good luck on all of your plays today and in the future, and we'll be looking for you back at the window. Take care.